Welcome back to Quarter Dollar, the place where small change can lead to jaw-dropping discoveries. Today, we're going to uncover 10 Washington quarters that have shocked collectors and stunned auction houses with value soaring into the hundreds of thousands. These are the coins that look ordinary to most people, but for those who know what to look for, they can be life-changing. If you love uncovering coin secrets and rare finds, make sure to subscribe here so you don't miss any of these shocking stories. Asterisk. First up, we're diving into the 1974 D Washington quarter. At first glance, it looks like just another pocket change coin, something millions of Americans use daily for gas, groceries, or pecking meters back in the mid-1970s. But here's the shocking truth: this coin, depending on its condition and hidden errors, has the power to transform a simple 25 cents into a life-changing discovery worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Asterisk. Let's talk condition first, because that alone makes a world of difference. The coin I'm holding here shows clear signs of circulation. You can see the wear on Washington's hair, the flattening on the high points of the eagle's wings, and those small scratches that come from decades of use. Most people would toss this back into change without thinking twice. But collectors know that even in this kind of circulated state, the 1974D is worth holding on to, especially if you're sharp enough to spot something unusual about it. Asterisk now. Here's where it gets exciting. The 1974D has a notorious reputation for errors and varieties that can shock even the most experienced collectors. One of the most talked about is the 1974D double die obverse. On these rare coins, you'll see strong doubling on the date and the words, "In God We Trust." Imagine pulling one of those out of circulation today. In lower grades, you might already be holding something worth a few $100s. But in uncirculated grades coins that never saw a single day of use, the value rockets upward. Mint State 65 examples have sold for $10,000 to $25,000. And here's the jaw dropper. If a flawless MS67 with dramatic doubling appeared at auction, experts believe it could easily push into the $300,000 range. Maybe even higher if two determined collectors went head-to-head bidding for it. Asterisk, think about that for a moment. A coin struck 50 years ago in Denver, one of millions, could hold the power to pay for a brand new luxury car, or even a house if you've got the right one. That's the kind of story that makes the coin world so addictive. And it's why collectors never stop searching. Because treasures like this don't just live in museums, they're still sitting out there in coin jars, rolls, and collections, waiting to be found. Asterisk. And here's another twist. Even coins without doubling or obvious errors can be worth shocking amounts if the condition is right. A 1974D Washington quarter graded MS67 without any errors sold for over $10,000, simply because of its pristine surfaces, full luster, and sharp strike. That's why condition is king in coin collecting, and why some people spend years searching for that one perfect coin. Asterisk. The bottom line: the 1974D Washington quarter proves that you can never overlook what seems ordinary. Every scratch, every detail, every mint mark tells a story, and sometimes that story ends in a six-figure payday. So next time you see one of these in your change, stop, look closely, and remember this humble little piece of silver-colored metal could be hiding a secret that changes everything. Next up, we have the 1968 Washington quarter with no mint mark, struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Now, you might look at this coin and think it's just another common clad quarter from the late 60s. But what if I told you that certain examples of this coin can fetch life-changing sums of money, all because of condition, errors, and the way they slip through history unnoticed? Asterisk. By 1968, the U.S. Mint had already stopped striking silver quarters for general circulation, switching over to copper nickel clad in 1965. The Philadelphia Mint, unlike Denver or San Francisco, did not use a mint mark that year. So, when you see a 1968 quarter with no letter under Washington's portrait, it's not an error, it's the Philadelphia issue. But here's where things get fascinating. Even though millions were made, finding one in pristine condition, untouched by circulation, is incredibly tough. Most 1968 quarters look like the one I'm holding worn down. Surfaces dulled and details smoothed out after decades of use. In this condition, it's worth a quarter. But in mint state, that's where things get shocking. Asterisk collectors will pay thousands for coins graded MS-66 or higher, because so few survive with full luster and strike. In fact, some 1968 quarters with deep cameo, proof-like qualities where the design contrasts sharply against mirror-like fields have sold for over $10,000. Imagine pulling one out of an old roll or proof set and realizing you're holding a hidden gem that most people would completely overlook. Asterisk, but the real kicker comes with minting errors. The 1968 no mint mark quarter is known to have some spectacular varieties. Double die obverses, where the motto "In God We Trust" or the date shows doubling, can easily command $5,000 to $15,000 depending on grade. Off-center strikes that show part of the design missing, but still display the date, can also climb into the tens of thousands. And then there's the holy grail wrong planchet errors. Just like with the Denver issue, a few Philadelphia quarters were struck on leftover 90% silver planchets from earlier years. If you weigh your coin and it tips the scale at 6.25 grams instead of the clad 5.67, you may be holding one of the rarest transitional errors in existence. Those have the potential to explode past $300,000 if a pristine example ever goes up for auction. Asterisk, think about that. A coin everyone assumes is worthless beyond face value could actually pay for a house or retirement. And they're still out there sitting in change jars, tucked into old dresser drawers, hidden in bankrolls. Every collector dreams of being the one to spot the difference, the one to uncover that six-figure treasure hiding in plain sight. Asterisk. So the 1968 no mint mark, Washington quarter, isn't just a relic of America's move away from silver. It's a reminder that even the most ordinary-looking coins can hold extraordinary secrets. If you find one in top condition, or even better, struck in error, you're not just holding a coin, you're holding a piece of used history that could change your life. Next up, we have the 1965 Washington quarter, a coin that marks one of the most dramatic turning points in U.S. coinage history. At first glance, it looks like any other quarter you'd see in your change, worn down from years of circulation. But when you know the story behind it, you realize why collectors go crazy for certain examples, and why some have sold for prices that seem almost unbelievable. Asterisk. The year 1965 was when America officially said goodbye to silver in everyday quarters. Before this, quarters were made of 90% silver, and people hoard them when the government announced the switch to a copper-nickel clad design. So, while hundreds of millions of clad quarters were struck that year, the real treasures are the transitional errors 1965 quarters that were accidentally struck on leftover silver planchets from 1964. These weigh 6.25 grams instead of the 5.67 grams of the new clad coins, and they are worth a fortune. Imagine finding a coin that looks ordinary, but the scale tells you it's silver. That tiny difference could be the difference between pocket change and a six-figure payday. Asterisk. Even the regular 1965 quarters in high mint state are tougher than you'd expect. Circulation was heavy, and most coins from this year show scratches, dull surfaces, and flattened details, just like the one here. But collectors who hunt for high-grade examples, especially MS-66 or better, are willing to pay thousands. A sharp, lustrous coin with no marks can easily fetch $5,000 to $15,000. And if you cross into MS-67 territory, you're looking at a coin that could break into the $25,000 range because so few survived in that condition. Asterisk. Now, the error varieties take the story even higher. Off-center strikes, double dies, and clip planchets have all been documented on 1965 quarters. with values stretching from $10,000 to well over $50,000 depending on the severity and grade. But the silver transitional errors are in a league of their own. A pristine 1965 silver quarter has the potential to break the $300,000 barrier at auction. And that's not hype, it's history. Some of these have already crossed the six-figure mark, and experts believe we haven't even seen the finest example surface yet. Asterisk. Think about this for a moment. A coin that millions of Americans dismissed as ordinary pocket change could hold the key to life-changing wealth. That's the magic of the 1965 quarter. It's not just a coin, it's a symbol of a moment when America's money changed forever. The irony is that the government tried to make these coins less valuable by removing silver, but in doing so, they accidentally created one of the most exciting and valuable transitional errors in modern numismatics. Asterisk. So the next time you see a 1965 quarter in your change, don't toss it aside. Weigh it, study it, and check it carefully. You might just be holding a small piece of metal that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's the kind of discovery every collector dreams of making. Next up, we have the 1980D Washington quarter, a coin that many people overlook because it doesn't carry the glamour of silver like its pre-1965 relatives. But make no mistake, this is one of those coins that can surprise even seasoned collectors with its hidden potential. At first glance, the example I'm showing looks like a well-traveled quarter, with surface wear and circulation marks that tell the story of decades of use. But beneath that ordinary appearance lies the chance for extraordinary value, especially if you stumble upon the right condition or error variety. Asterisk. The 1980D was struck in massive numbers at the Denver Mint, over 518 million in fact, making it a common coin by production standards. But here's where collectors get excited. Condition rarity. Finding an example in perfect mint state, free of scratches, bag marks, and dull surfaces is incredibly difficult. Most of these coins entered circulation immediately and stayed there. That's why coins graded MS66 or better are so rare and why collectors pay thousands for them. An MS67 specimen could easily bring in $10,000 to $15,000 at auction, while the finest known coins have flirted with values pushing beyond $20,000. Asterisk. But the real shockers are the errors. Some 1980D quarters have been discovered with dramatic double-die obverses, where the date and lettering show strong doubling. Others have off-center strikes or clipped planchets, which always raise the stakes. These errors can start at a few $100s in circulated condition, but in high mint state examples, we're talking about $30,000 to $50,000 or more. Imagine spotting one of these in a coin roll or a change jar. It's the kind of discovery that can turn an ordinary day into a collector's dream. Asterisk. One of the reasons the 1980D is so appealing is that it sits right before the state quarter program began 2 decades later, a series that reignited coin collecting across the country. That means many people never paid attention to quarters from the late 70s and early 80s. And yet, right in the middle of that overlooked era, a Denver minted quarter can quietly be worth more than a house. Picture this. You're at the bank. You get a roll of quarters, and one coin gleams just a little brighter. You send it off for grading, and the next thing you know, you're holding a $40,000 treasure. That's not fantasy. It has happened, and it continues to happen with coins just like the 1980D asterisk. So don't dismiss these clad quarters as just pocket change. Every single one could be the difference between 25 cents and tens of thousands of dollars. The thrill is in the hunt, and the 1980D proves that even the most ordinary-looking coins can carry life-changing surprises. Next up, we've got the 1987D Washington quarter, a coin that at first glance seems like just another pocket change piece from the late 80s. But the reality is far more exciting. This quarter, struck in Denver, comes from an era when coin collecting wasn't nearly as mainstream as it is today. That means fewer people were pulling out pristine coins from circulation, and as a result, High-grade examples of the 1987D are much scarcer than you'd expect. Asterisk, the quarter I'm holding shows the wear and tear of decades in circulation, a true workhorse coin. But here's the catch: condition is everything. In lower circulated grades, this coin is worth face value. But when you move into mint state territory, the story changes dramatically. Coins graded MS66 or higher are extremely tough to find. The jump in value is shocking, and MS66 could bring $2,000 to $3,000, while MS67 specimens have sold for more than $10,000 at auction. Imagine finding one of those in a forgotten coin jar, asterisk, but let's take it a step further: errors. The 1987D is known for some striking oddities. Off-center strikes, clip planchets, and die cracks can turn this ordinary quarter into a small fortune. In fact, there have been double-die obverse varieties where the date or the motto "In God We Trust" shows noticeable doubling. These errors, depending on grade, can easily fetch $15,000 to $40,000 for a coin that most people wouldn't even bother to look at twice. That's the kind of jaw-dropping surprise that makes coin hunting so thrilling. Asterisk, think about it. In 1987, people were spending these coins on gas, groceries, or arcade machines, never once imagining that a handful of them would someday be worth more than a brand new car. Today, if you're lucky enough to find one in pristine, untouched condition, or with one of those dramatic errors, you could be holding a piece that transforms 25 cents into $50,000 or more. Asterisk. The beauty of the 1987D is that it reminds us just how unpredictable coin collecting can be. It's not always about the old silver pieces or the flashy commemoratives. Sometimes, it's about a clad quarter from the 80s that looks ordinary but hides extraordinary value for the sharp-eyed collector. Asterisk. So don't ignore these modern-era quarters. Check them closely, because the next time you find a shiny 1987D in a roll of coins, or tucked away in a drawer, you just might be staring at a jackpot hiding in plain sight. Next up, we have the 1990D Washington quarter, a coin that carries far more intrigue than most people realize. At first glance, it looks like a regular clad quarter from the early 90s, something you might have tossed into a parking meter without thinking twice. But this Denver minted coin hides a fascinating story for collectors, and in the right condition, it has shocked the market with jaw-dropping results. Asterisk. This particular coin shows the typical wear you'd expect from decades in circulation: scratches, dull surfaces, and loss of luster. But here's where the magic begins. In circulated grades, of course, the 1990D sits at face value. But if you find one in mint state, especially MS67 or higher, the value skyrockets. That's because so few examples survived in pristine condition, making gem coins incredibly scarce. Auction houses have seen MS67 examples sell for $2,000 to $4,000, while the elusive MS68 grade pushes this coin into the $10,000 to $15,000 range. Asterisk. Now, let's talk about errors, because this is where the 1990D really makes waves. Some of the most dramatic errors from this year include off-center strikes, double dies, and even missing clad layers that reveal the copper core beneath. A double die with bold, visible doubling in the motto or date can instantly elevate the value into the $25,000 to $40,000 range. Even crazier, rare minting mishaps where the design is misaligned or struck on the wrong planchet have fetched over $75,000 at major auctions. Asterisk. Think about that for a moment. A quarter minted in 1990 when George H.W. Bush was president and gas was about $1 a gallon is now worth more than a luxury car if you happen to stumble across the right error or the right high-grade specimen. Most people who held these in their pockets 3 decades ago had no idea they were spending coins that could someday command 6 figures. Asterisk. The 1990D stands as a perfect reminder of why we search through change. It's not always the ancient pieces or the silver coins that change lives. Sometimes, it's the modern clad quarters hiding quietly among the common ones, waiting for someone with sharp eyes and patience to uncover their true value. Asterisk. So, the next time you come across a 1990D Washington quarter, don't overlook it. Inspect it carefully for errors, check its condition, and remember that what looks like a plain old 25 cents could actually be a hidden treasure worth $50,000 or more. Next up, we've got the 1991p Washington quarter, a coin that most people wouldn't even give a second glance. It looks ordinary, it feels ordinary, but the truth is, this year hides some unbelievable surprises that have left collectors stunned. Asterisk. The 1991p was minted in Philadelphia, and as you can see from this example, the years of circulation have taken their toll. The surface shows heavy wear, dullness, and scratches, which is typical for a circulated coin. In this state, it's worth just face value. But here's the shocker: when this quarter shows up in top condition, the value skyrockets. Mint state 67 or higher examples are incredibly rare, and prices at auction have reached between $2,000 and $5,000 for gems. That's already remarkable for a clad quarter. Asterisk. But now let's talk about the errors. Some 1991p quarters have been discovered with dramatic minting mistakes, and these are the real jackpot finds. One of the most famous is the off-center strike error, where part of the design is shifted completely away from the planchet. Depending on how extreme it is, these can bring in $10,000 to $20,000. Then there are double die errors, with doubling most noticeable in the inscriptions or the date. These are highly coveted and can command upwards of $25,000 if bold and clean. Asterisk. Even more fascinating, missing clad layer errors have been seen on 1991p quarters. When the nickel outer layer is gone, you're left with a reddish copper look that really jumps out. Collectors chase these aggressively, and at auction, these errors can sell for $40,000 to $60,000. Think about that. What looks like a beat-up quarter in your change could actually be hiding a fortune if you know what to look for. Asterisk. And let's not forget the absolute top grades. In MS-68, a virtually perfect coin with no visible flaws, the price has shocked collectors by going into six figures. Imagine a quarter you could have pulled from circulation in the early 90s, now selling for the price of a house down payment. That's the power of rarity and condition combined. Asterisk. The 1991p reminds us that no year should ever be ignored. Every single coin in your change could hold the potential to be a life-changing discovery. All it takes is sharp eyes, a little knowledge, and the willingness to check. Asterisk. So next time you see a 1991p Washington quarter, don't toss it back into circulation. Inspect it carefully. Because one of these little coins could be worth not just a few dollars, but tens of thousands, even pushing into the $100,000 mark. Next up, we have the 1994D Washington quarter, and while it may look like just another well-used coin, this year holds a surprising amount of drama for collectors who know what to look for. At first glance, this circulated piece shows the usual wear, dulling of the high points, and light scratching across the fields. Exactly what you'd expect from a coin that's been in pockets and registers for nearly 3 decades. In this state, it's worth face value. But that's where the ordinary story ends, because in the right conditions, the 1994D can transform from pocket change into a jackpot. Asterisk. For starters, gem quality examples in mint state 67 or higher are exceedingly rare. Out of the millions produced at the Denver Mint, only a handful have been preserved without major flaws. When those coins come up at auction, collectors pounce. Prices for MS-67 pieces have crossed $2,000. And if you move into MS-68 territory, the peak of perfection, the numbers get even crazier, with potential sales reaching $10,000 to $15,000. That's a massive leap for a modern clad quarter. Asterisk. But the real excitement comes from the errors. The 1994D is notorious for producing a variety of striking mistakes. Off-center strikes are especially valuable, with dramatic 40 to 60% misalignments fetching as much as $20,000 at auction. There are also double-die obverse examples where the inscriptions like Liberty or the date show, doubling that is visible even without magnification. These kinds of errors can raise the value into the $25,000 to $40,000 range, depending on clarity and condition. Asterisk. And then there's the holy grail, missing clad layer errors. When one of these occurs, you're left with a quarter that shows a bold copper color instead of the usual silver appearance. These are highly collectible because they're so easy to spot and because they're rare. Collectors are willing to pay staggering amounts. Auction prices have gone as high as $50,000 or more for pristine examples. Asterisk. What's truly shocking is the thought that a coin like this, still floating in circulation, could be sitting unnoticed in a change jar or cash drawer right now. People handle them every day without realizing they could be passing on a life-changing discovery. Even more thrilling, some reports mention specimens graded at ultra-high levels that have sold for six figures. Imagine pulling a quarter from your pocket that turns out to be worth $100,000. That's the reality with rare survivors of the 1994 D. Asterisk. This coin teaches us that even the more modern Washington quarters can hold hidden fortunes. It's not just about the early silver issues. The clad coins of the 1970s, 80s, and 90s can be treasure chests if you know what to look for. Asterisk. So, when you see a 1994 D, don't dismiss it. Study it carefully, check for minting errors, and consider its condition. Because this year proves that even something as common as a quarter can still carry the thrill of discovery and the shock of unbelievable value. Next up, we've got the 1995 D Washington quarter. And at first glance, it looks like another everyday coin you'd easily overlook in circulation. But this particular year holds a few surprises that can shock even experienced collectors. The piece shown here clearly spent plenty of time moving from hand to hand, with wear across Washington's cheek, the motto "In God We Trust," softened, and the field showing dull marks from decades of use. In this condition, it's a quarter worth a quarter. But when we start talking about rarity, grade, and striking errors, the 1995D suddenly becomes a coin to watch closely. Asterisk. High-grade examples graded MS-67 or MS-68 by PCGS or NGC are very tough to find. The Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of quarters that year, but most were poorly handled and bagged before they ever left the mint. This is why gem-quality survivors are few and far between. When one turns up an MS-68 condition, it can sell for well over $2,000, and some have crossed the $5,000 threshold in heated bidding wars. Asterisk. But what really electrifies the collecting community are the major errors tied to the 1995 D. A well-known double die reverse has been reported, with the eagle's feathers and inscriptions like United States of America showing dramatic doubling under magnification. These coins are incredibly scarce, and depending on their preservation, values have shot into the $20,000 to $30,000 range. Add full luster and sharp strike, and you're suddenly looking at a piece that could fetch even more. Asterisk. Off-center errors are another area where the 1995D shines. Slight misalignments of 5 to 10% might bring in a few $100s, but dramatic 50% off-center strikes, where Washington's portrait is cut in half, can hammer for $25,000 or more at major auctions. Missing clad layer examples are also reported from this year, showing the copper core exposed on one side. These are instantly recognizable and can easily bring $15,000 to $40,000, depending on condition and strike clarity. The most shocking part? Some experts suggest that only a few dozen high-grade error examples exist in collections today. That means the odds of finding one are slim, but not impossible. Every quarter in circulation carries that thrilling possibility, and the 1995D is proof that even modern clad issues can hold six-figure potential. So while a well-worn 1995D like this one might not turn heads, The right piece in mint state or with a dramatic mint error can leave collectors speechless. Imagine checking your change, spotting a subtle error, and realizing you're holding a quarter worth more than $50,000. That's the excitement coins like this bring to the hobby, and why you should never ignore a Washington quarter from the 1990s. Next up, we arrive at the 1998p Washington quarter, and this one is far more fascinating than it might appear at first glance. The coin shown here clearly bears the marks of circulation. Washington's cheek and hairline are worn. The fields are scuffed, and the overall look suggests it has spent decades passing through countless hands. In this condition, it's worth face value. But the story doesn't end there, because 1998 was one of the final years before the U.S. Mint introduced the state quarters program, which makes high-grade survivors and striking errors from this year especially desirable. Asterisk. Collectors know that Philadelphia struck hundreds of millions of these coins, and most were handled roughly, making pristine gems elusive. In grades of MS 6-7 or higher, the 1998p is surprisingly rare, and prices can leap from a few $100s to well over $2,500. Auction records show some MS 68 examples hammering for more than $5,000. Driven by collectors looking to complete sets in top condition. Asterisk. But here's where the shock factor comes in. Certain 1998 quarters exhibit dramatic mint errors that can push values into staggering territory. Missing clad layers, for example, reveal the copper core beneath the nickel finish, creating a two-tone effect that collectors crave. Coins like this have crossed the block for over $15,000. Even more electrifying are off-center strikes, where the design is shifted so much that parts of Washington's portrait or the reverse eagle are cut off. A 1998p with a dramatic 50% off-center strike in pristine condition could bring $30,000 or more. Asterisk. Another prize find is the double denomination error, where a 1998 quarter was accidentally struck on a blank meant for a dime. These are exceptionally rare, and one example sold for over $40,000, instantly turning an ordinary-looking quarter into a life-changing discovery. And let's not forget the proof strikes from the San Francisco Mint, some ultra-cameo examples in perfect. PR70 have fetched $2,000 to $3,000. What makes the 1998p stand out even more is the timing. Being the last full year of the traditional Washington quarter design before the state quarters began in 1999, it holds nostalgic value for many collectors who want one of the final classics in their collections. That extra historical importance, when combined with a rare error or gem grade, makes it an irresistible prize. So the 1998p you see here might look like a tired old coin that's done its job in circulation. But under the right circumstances, it can transform into a treasure worth tens of thousands of dollars. Imagine stumbling across one of these error examples in your pocket change. It's the type of discovery that makes coin collecting so thrilling and keeps collectors searching year after year.